All right, what's up, everyone? My name is Brent, and welcome to another episode of the Work in Progress After Dark podcast. And today, I am joined by Casey over here, my co-host and co-creator of Whip. Casey, I'm glad you're here as always.
Thank you for having me. I don't know how much I'll be able to input on this discussion today, but I'm definitely glad to be here.
And then below me is Jeremiah from Dudeless Chat. Jeremiah, welcome to the show.
It's always good to be here.
It's always good to have you. You're more or less a part of this thing now. So
Just take off my ring. All this love makes me reconsider. So
since we're talking about video games today, let's talk about what we all have been playing. So let's start with
let's
Casey.
put that back on because she comes into this room. Sorry, I just thought about it. Like,
so Casey, what have you been playing lately?
Currently, I've just been playing Persona 5 for the most part. Today, I did play a little bit of Rogue Legacy 2 because they came out with a new update. So was just playing that for a little bit. But no, pretty much Persona 5 Royal completely has been taking up most of my gaming time.
How's that coming along for you?
Really fun. I'm about to get into the third palace.
So Makoto, the bank.
Hey,
yeah. So I'm basically trying to find where the palace is right now.
Okay.
I've been blackmailed, so
yeah. That is actually one of my favorite palaces.
I think that palace is like it's widely loved. From the music to the
Makoto in general is widely loved. I think that she's a little overrated, but I do like that particular palace. It's a fun palace to navigate. It's not particularly hard, and the boss is fun.
Okay, sweet.
So
looking forward to it then.
Yeah, that one's a good one. And Jeremiah, what have you been playing lately?
I mean, so it's been Persona 5. It's on the Game Pass. We're going to play it. We're going to do our thing. I had to start over, as you know, because certain people of this generation don't realize that autosave isn't a feature just inherently, and they don't know Sasso, and so that frustrates me. But it's all good. It's all good. I got to go back, and I'm trying my best not to watch walkthroughs of this because I played the game before, and before I was like, okay, just do whatever you can, But I realized, like, nope, I really want to romance that doctor this time. So, like, we should do this. And I've already realized I missed one +3 response whenever I looked it up. That was actually, I was like, son of a bitch. And so I needed to consult the great guru that is Brent. Like, that's not going to hurt my chances of maxing her out, is it? Because I will literally restart this damn game tonight.
It'll just slow down your progress.
Hey, I like it nice and slow, baby. It's me and the doctor.
Hey.
So when it comes to ranking up your social links, you want to have, so say that you are talking with the doctor. I think her social link is death, right?
Yes. Yes.
I think her arcana is death. So you want to have a death persona in your inventory when talking with her. You get so even if you mess up, you'll still get some bonus.
Oh, I don't have one right now. Son of a.
Yes.
Okay.
So you should. So like what you can do. So like whenever you know that you're going to go hang out with her, check to see what personas you have, and if you don't have one, just go and talk. Just go into the Velvet Room and talk with what's his
Igor.
face? Yeah, and get a death persona. Fuse one, buy one from the compendium. See if maybe some of those DLC personas that are free are death personas. You could just grab one of those.
There are. Like they all look fantastic. I'm trying not to grab them, but part of me is like, but I kind of really want it, And I love the personas in this game. Can we just take a second to just really appreciate how amazing some of them look? Not just the creatures, but like the personas themselves are just sexy. It's the whole reason I played the game. Well, the whole reason is because of a Smash Brothers Ultimate, the reveal, which I think was fantastic. Bringing in all the voice actors, showing off Arsene and stuff like that. I was like, I've got to play this game. You know, I had followed Personas 2 and 3, but I never like went and played anything or watched anything for Persona 4, and except for a few clips, you know. But I was like, I'm actually gonna go play this, and what a game! It's been fun. I know I'm trying not to sit here and dote on it, but it has been
Persona 4 is like the most wholesome thing that you'll ever, besides the murder. Persona 4 is some of the most wholesome,
the blatant killing, the actual murder that happens.
Whereas like Persona 5, like I love Persona 5. It's one of my favorite games in recent years. One of my top 5 games ever made. And Royal specifically, Royal just kind of like blew my mind and just kind of made me think about reality and choices and things like that. It really messed my brain up for a couple of days after beating it. But the thing is, like, if you think about it, Persona 5 is actually rather bleak. It's kind of, there's a lot of bleak storytelling, but it's done in a way that is sort of, although our stories are bleak, there is a bright future ahead, which is one thing that I really like about it. But with Persona 4, everyone is a lot more happier. Their stories are a little bit more happier, and it's a lot of fun. And it's the Persona 4 like has that group of friends that you kind of always wanted to have in high school. You guys are gonna love Persona 4. In my opinion, it's better. In my opinion, the characters are better in Persona 4 than they are in Persona 5. Chie, best girl all the way. But but anyways, I'm glad that you guys are enjoying Persona 5 Royal, and my plan is to replay it in January when I get back from California, prior to the release of Forspoken. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the first 3 weeks of January before Forspoken comes out. So because I'm ready to, I actually have some video ideas planned for Persona 5, which I'm really looking forward to doing. Because it's such a great game, and I can't wait to dive into that game for the 5th time. Anyways, so today the main topic of today is, so the last time we did this show, we talked about what games we were excited for in 2023. This is sort of a continuation on that topic. But today we're going to talk about most specifically what the two big, and like, here's the thing. I know that we're not including Nintendo in this conversation, because Nintendo is, they're kind of always doing their own thing. They never seem, they're like, for the lack of a better term, they're like that cool introvert who is just totally fine no matter what they do. But the conversation as to like, when it comes to, and this, first of all, I just want to make it very clear, this podcast is not about console wars. It's not about console wars, but when console wars are in the picture, it always boils down to PlayStation and Xbox. So what we're gonna talk about today is how it's not about who will outshine the other. It's about what each individual system company has to do in order to have a successful year in 2023.
Yes.
The past couple of years have been rather bleh. This has been one of the weirdest generation changes.
Like one of the weirdest.
And it all has to, and I honestly believe that it all has to do with the pandemic. And I won't say the word because YouTube likes to censor the word. So we won't, but it has to do with the pandemic that we dealt with in late 2019, 2020, and 2021, and even a little bit in 2022. And it seemed to stump production of a lot of games, or and even and we'll talk about and Cyberpunk is a big example in 2020. That game got hit hard by the pandemic, even though I think that's BS, but it got pushed back 3 times in 2020 on its own due to working from home. God of War Ragnarok. Oh, by the way, that's what I've been playing is God of War Ragnarok. It's a great game. I love it so far. I've been trying to keep my chill. Anyways, we'll continue on with this conversation. But God of War Ragnarok was supposed to come out last year in 2021, but it was delayed to this year. And I think it was even delayed. I think it was supposed to come out maybe in, I don't know. I think it was supposed to come out in April
Summer
of this. I don't know, but ultimately got pushed to November. Or no, what happened was nobody knew. There was no release. There was no date given for the longest time. There was no release date given for the longest time, and finally they gave a release date for November. But the thing is, like, this year in particular has been rather mediocre. Both, I want to say objectively that PlayStation had a decent year. I mean, they had Forbidden West, and then they had God of War Ragnarok as far as like first party titles that were released. And the console seems to be doing really well as well. Unfortunately, Microsoft, and this is objective, this isn't some console war bullshit. Microsoft had a mediocre year at best. Like, it was
when it comes to releases of games, yes.
Yeah.
When it comes to the releases like Scorn, no offense to that, it fell flat on its face. Of course, not necessarily with releases, but with the Halo Infinite issues that happened in the last few months. When it comes to games, now I will say that their year as an overall was fantastic. The Game Pass exploded in what they were doing, and it did very well. Like you said, objectively, when it comes to the revenue of it, Game Pass taking over 18 to 20% of their revenue, coming in from the gaming side of things is fantastic for them, And so objectively, and I agree with that. Not to argue. It's like, my thing is that they did well on one area in their releases of their software and subscriptions and services, but I do agree with you. We have to focus down with all the acquisitions they've been doing. What have y'all done with Bethesda since getting them? What have you done with these things? And this year, nothing so far. Everything, they put all their chips into Starfield, coming out for Bethesda. And we apparently the focus is still on the Activision Blizzard acquisitions. So we haven't really seen too many things come from Xbox this year. So like you said, I do agree. I'm going to say all this. I do agree. Like, as far as releases,
So, and for me, well, here's the thing. And for me as a gamer, Xbox did nothing for me as a gamer. It's great that they have this really great. It's cool that they have this really great service that I can ultimately play games on when games that interest me land there, but no games of interest landed me there. The only thing that's there is just it's a bunch of indie stuff. I'm not particularly big into indie games. No disrespect to indie games, they're just not my cup of tea. And then it's a bunch of it's a bunch of third-party titles that I've either played or not interested in, or I can play on my PlayStation. Ultimately, when it boils down to it, I like physical copies of things. If I'm going to play something, I'm going to buy a physical copy of it. That's just kind of like where I land on it. And if I don't buy a physical copy of it, I usually am just not interested. So for me, yes, 2022 was a great financial year for Xbox, but that doesn't affect me as a gamer.
Well, and like I said, because you also don't have a focus on their Game Pass. For me as a gamer, being able to try out these games has at least been decent. Well, and we've talked about how I do my system on that, but admittedly, like, it is what it is, man. We're here to save money. But my thing is, I think it's great they're opening all these games out to a bunch of people, and that's a smart move.
Sure.
But as far as and that's where we differ, and there's no issue with that. Where we differ is, I don't really mind physical copies one way or the other.
Sure.
What I do mind about is the accessibility, and where PlayStation usually lacks in that because they want the money now or not at all. Xbox has opened that up into a community of different SES, different demographic. And of course, opening it up to that subscription lets indie games get more exposure. I think it did very well. But I do agree with you as far as releases go. I mean, they didn't, and that's something we've been focusing on, you and myself, over the last few weeks. In fact, in our
I
talks,
mean,
where it's like, yeah, they have all this money, but we're still having issues with Halo, and that PR
mhm.
issue is now what, month 3 out? No response. We're not going to fix that.
Well,
We got the
I
money
think
to do everything
I think
else.
earlier this I think earlier I think just the other day Halo had an update.
Did
Didn't
it?
it?
Did it?
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is like the issue that everyone's waiting to hear back on is the couch co-op,
I don't think that's going to
takeaway.
happen.
I
I think
know,
that's done.
and they're just going to ignore it. And that was my issue with that whole thing. That's a whole nother topic, but that was my whole issue. That's my thing. Is like, one thing I don't respect about Xbox is that they usually just ignore all the naysaying until it gets too far down the line for anyone to care anymore. Happened with Gears, happens here.
Mhm.
So,
So, okay. Now, so we've recapped 2022. So, Jeremiah, from
mhm.
your perspective, what does Xbox need to do to have a good year and I'm gonna get I want to get your thoughts on Xbox, and then I'm gonna get my thoughts, and maybe Casey,
Yes,
if you have it, then and then Casey, if you have anything to throw in, by all means.
Mhm.
So
I think it's going
Jeremiah,
to be perfect.
so
I think it's going to be
and
perfect.
then we'll switch to PlayStation. So
Mhm.
Jeremiah, what do you think
And
that
then go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
So
Sorry.
what do you think Xbox needs to do to have a successful year in 2023?
The preface, I did, and I apologize. I just want to preface too, like as y'all can see, from anyone who is watching now or will be watching, of course, I play Xbox and he
Mhm.
plays Sony. And we keep a respect to it. So I really, actually, am more interested to hear your thoughts on what they would need to do, as you see their flaws more than
Mhm.
I do. And vice versa for PlayStation
Well,
to us. But either,
okay. So
good.
so that's so just to clarify, yes,
Hmm.
as of the past for the better part of the past decade, I have been primarily a PlayStation gamer, but I go where the good games are.
Yes.
Unfortunately, PlayStation, in my opinion, PlayStation has had more games to my taste, but I
Mhm.
think a legitimate argument could be made that in the past decade, Xbox's games have so a legitimate objective argument can be made that Xbox's games have declined in quality, especially in the past half decade. So it's not necessarily like it's also not necessarily a preference thing. I do think that like there just has not been anything decent come out of Xbox that has really caught my eye. Not even
Yeah.
Halo. Halo, this series that I, essentially grew up with, like Halo 4 was cool. I enjoyed Halo 4. I was amongst the minority that I actually generally enjoyed. But like when Halo 5 came rolling around, I was, balls deep into whatever it is that I was doing on PlayStation, and I just had no interest in playing Halo 5. It it just didn't look interesting to me, and then I was a little excited for Infinite. Anyways, so I just wanted to clarify that I go where the good
Yeah.
games are. I go where the good games are. I go where the games that interest me are. And
Mhm.
um, lately, Xbox just hasn't had those. I would love
That's
to be able
fair.
to. So Jeremiah, take it away. What do you
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Xbox needs to
So
do?
for Xbox, for me, is exactly what you just brought up. Is like you go where the good games are. It's time to focus down on games. So the problem is the last few years, and I'd say almost half a decade now, with Xbox One, and let's be fair, it wasn't the best release, and they were constantly fighting just to keep their edge, just to keep some skin in the game, from
Mhm,
E3s to releases to box. I feel like this is the year with your acquisitions, everything else, since you are in prime position with your Game Pass doing one, everything else, there's nothing else to work on except
mhm,
for games. There's nothing else to work on except for putting out more content, working on some new series, working on something that would bring people even closer to the Xbox experience. Um, the fact is, although Game Pass is doing well, and we looked at the fiscal year reports and stuff like that, it's
mhm,
like, yeah, Game Pass did fantastic, and they're doing really well despite being down in certain hardware sales and things like that.
mhm,
It's like, well, that just tells you that since they're doing so well and y'all are doing phenomenal, You need to pick up with where you're lacking. And the numbers show it like you said, it's in games that are going to appeal to triple A people, people who want the best games out there, people who are not focused on the indie, people who are not focused on the accessibility to all these different games. They're looking for something new, inventive, or innovative. And it doesn't have to be necessarily exclusive, but it needs to be exclusively made by Xbox. Does that make sense? It's like, it doesn't have to just stay on Xbox, but if it was something that came out of Xbox Studios, happened to hit every console, that's at least a respect towards them,
Sure.
So it's time to do something. Like, don't weigh on the coattails of what's, like you said, Infinite. There was a little bit of hype to it, but I didn't play Infinite. I played up to Halo 5, and I kind of just like, whenever I found out you couldn't do co-op, well, that was the whole reason I liked to play these shooters, was to co-op with a friend, and since I couldn't do that, I didn't even play that campaign. I would have. It was a nice campaign, but you couldn't. So that's my thought. I do think it's the focus on the games. The Game Pass is doing just fine. So focus now on putting out those prime games. What do you think, though?
So when it comes to Xbox, I think that for it's real. I think like So generally, I usually don't care about the Game Awards. I really don't. I think that they're just it's an excuse for Jeff Keighley to come out every year and make several $1 million and then disappear. It's just a money grab for him. It's that one time of year where he just works really hard and then he doesn't have to work at all for the rest of the year. I think he's incredibly disingenuous. Anyways, besides the point. I think that I think how do I put it? So when it boils down to it, definitely needs to release games. Not only do they need to release games, but their games need to be good. Their games need to be good. Okay. And Microsoft needs to have a legitimate, not a throw you a bone kind of thing, but a legitimate Game of the Year contender. They need a legitimate Game of the Year contender. It has been too long. It's they need that. I think that they need that, or else I think even the hardest Xbox fans are going to start being like, okay, what is going on? Because they're, in this whole thing that's going on with the whole Activision Blizzard thing, it's like, it's a lot of what Sony fans have issue with is that they're buying their way to number one. They're not earning it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my issue. And I agree. They're buying their way to number one and they're not earning it. Okay. And so to even though this is a conversation mostly focused on 2023, I think in the long run, Microsoft needs to stop buying up other IPs than calling them their own. Microsoft needs to create some original IPs that are quality.
It gets a little harder on that one because, like, for instance, and we started on this conversation before, but like Bethesda and in specifics, Elder Scrolls, that was Xbox first. It didn't actually open out into PlayStation until Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
So by them acquiring them, some people have made the argument that it's more just bringing them home. And it's like you could say that, and let's be fair, from the arguments we've had with the bugs of Elder Scrolls and how bad those games could be, it's up the alley of some of the oversights of Xbox when it comes to game development. Certain things just being taken as just good gaming when in actuality it's just lazy development.
Okay, well then okay, if we're gonna go by that, then and as future Bethesda games can't have any problems if they're gonna take those IPs and say, hey, look, these were always ours. We just sort of lent them out to you over the past 20 years or maybe 15 years. but now that we have them back, we're gonna make them better. Now we're gonna make
11?
them better than
11 years.
11 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
because Skyrim came out in 2011.
But Oblivion
What did
was
Oblivion go?
Oblivion was quote unquote money hatted by Xbox for like 2 years before PlayStation went to PlayStation. I'm just joking. I don't like that word, but like Xbox did have exclusivity on Oblivion for like a year or two before it did eventually come to PlayStation 3.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But so for 2023, in my opinion, Xbox, every game that they're going to be calling a first party game, such as
Redfall,
Starfield,
Arc 2.
Arc 2, Avowed. I don't. Mm-hmm. There's speculation that Avowed won't even come out next year, but let's just throw it out there. They all need to be good. They need to be good. Now, Obsidian puts out good games. Honestly, like Obsidian does a good job. I'm sure that Avowed's going to be just fine. I think Obsidian did The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds was a really good game. It wasn't particularly, after a while I kind of got bored with it, but
horrible on its release, but it was a fun game. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I can appreciate the tapestry in which they created their art with, so anyways, but these games need to be good. These games need to be perfect.
Good. No, and we've been on that. We both agree with that. The fact is, when Starfield comes out, that is a space exploration game. I mean, it's not exploration, but it's going to be part of it. I mean, it's going to be exploration. Everything from them is kind of an explore the environment, do what you're going to do, get side quests, and pick up butterflies. But the fact is, if it's not to a certain, like, if it has the same bugs that Skyrim came out with, that Fallout 76 came out with, if it has the same bugs that they usually have in their games, where we've taken to such commonplace that we make jokes about it and everyone laughs but kind of dies on the inside too, like clipping into, like, serious, like, I agree with you. They just got a huge money boost, and that's not even an Xbox thing. To me, that comes down to Cinemax and Bethesda. Guys, y'all have been the giants for like 20 years. That's 2 decades, and in that time, you can't get developers that can like work on these issues. I mean, come on here. It's time to do it. And with Xbox backing them, there should be no excuse for Bethesda. It still falls onto Xbox. If they do bad, they represent Xbox at this point.
Yeah.
And it'll be bad, But my thing is,
oh no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. But my thing is, that to me falls more on Bethesda. I understand that it still will fall onto Xbox, but that more falls on y'all. 20 years and y'all haven't done much. Like, when it comes to fixing those issues, I make that statement. It pisses me off. So,
and here's another thing, like, when it comes down to Bethesda Game Studios, they release a new game maybe once. I guess like they had. I guess their game turnaround time isn't too bad. It's like they do a game maybe every 4 or 5 years. I think they go back and forth between Elder Scrolls and Fallout. So I guess they do put out a game every so often. It just feels like sometimes it feels like longer because there's Fallout fans and then there's Elder Scrolls fans, and sometimes it takes 10 years for your sequel to come out. Anyways, but yeah, I think Starfield needs to be good. Yeah, needs to be good at launch. Anyways,
it does.
Yeah. Casey, any based off what you've heard, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Microsoft needs to pick it up, use your IPs, and actually hone their skills. Don't just force them to make a very rushed game, and stop with the expectations. Just make a good game, and the expectations will go along with that. Right now, they're trying to make something grandiose when at the same time it's like it shouldn't be, because there's no reason. You guys can show you can do it. Just do it.
Yeah, bigger doesn't always mean better. I mean, as of late, I've preferred, you know, linear storytelling than like these massive open world sandboxes. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy them, but like, I just don't have time for them. So if I'm gonna sit down and jump into an open world sandbox that like has like 100 to 200, 100, 200, 300 hours worth of content in it, it better be good. Uh, like in my cyberpunk review, I talk about how like I had fun the entire time I was playing that game. I didn't get bored once. And like, despite the flaws that Cyberpunk 2077 might have, to me it's really important that that a game is fun first and foremost. That the game is fun and functional. You can't have fun without it being functional. So you can't have what is it? It's like can't spell functional without fun, right?
Well, I think you can. It just depends. Like, I think there are 4 categories a game has to hit. Okay,
Okay.
and out of that, 2 categories need to be a part of it. In order for it to be considered at least decent.
Okay.
Anything more than that is important. But seriously, it's 4. It has to have a good story.
Okay.
Which ranges, of course, from a story that you are too disconnected from to immersive.
Mhm.
And I'm always about immersion. You know that.
Mhm.
It has to have you said functionality. That one is important. The game mechanics that you play have to be to some degree functional or dysfunctional to such degrees and lengths that the player themselves can abuse that.
Mhm.
Like, so it's either got to be a game that's so flawless, it's so realistic, it's so on point that like if I jump on this chair, it's going to roll the exact like it's a rolly chair. It's only going to roll as far as a rolly chair would have actually rolled, and actually fall
Mhm.
over. You like skate mechanics, or you get the whole like going to like Breath of the Wilds, where apparently you can lock stasis something and hit it 50 times and shoot it halfway across the world. And apparently he had that swing, but it dies to a pig. It's like
Mhm.
things like over the top. So functionality, I think, is kind of harder there. It depends. For instance, when it comes to zombie games, I'm running with Call of Duty and stuff like that. And it sucks if you get like clipped on a wall and you can't apparently walk over a paint can. That's annoying as crap, right? But
Mhm.
then I play games like Dead Island and I'll praise it, and they have so many issues in mechanics and functionality, but that's what adds to the experience and the fun, is the fact that what set Dead Island aside from other zombie shooters, zombie fighters, is the fact that there's so many issues that's actually kind of funny because not only the players can get caught in it, but like zombies.
Mhm.
Like if you close a door that obviously doesn't have a door handle, but zombies can't push through it, it's like that's kind of stupid. But
Mhm.
this is funny. So functionality plays a point into it. Other than that, length. And to me, that's a spectrum that actually there can be, like you said, games that are too long, too big, too much to do, and games that are just too fast, too quick. I feel like there is a sweet spot. And I think that anyone who argues one way or the other is just being pretentious with it. It depends
Mhm.
on the type of game. That
Mhm.
that one varies depending on the type of game you're playing. But the last thing that I feel is and I think it's just as big, if not bigger than everything else, is the appeal. You know,
Mhm.
and what I mean, like, I don't Scorn, for instance. Scorn doesn't appeal to me because it's not vivid. The music doesn't pull me in. It could be a part of immersion, but it's also just like there's really hardly any music. Everything's gray on brown on rust colors. I don't really care about like this isn't horror though you're saying it's that.
Mhm.
There's no appeal to it based off what you've made. There's appeal for me to play games like Ascent, like from back in the day because or I'm sorry, Ascent Amnesia back in the day because
Mhm.
that was a horror that actually kind of puts you in the feel from the music to every sound being amplified to every sense being utilized. It's like, oh god, what's about
Mhm.
to happen next? I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but like you have to hit 2 of those to be a good game, and sadly, and I brought it up to say like Microsoft games always seems to hit one really fantastic and drop the other 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like no, serious. Like Scorn did that. Like yeah, I mean sure, it's a decently length game for what it is. It's a puzzler. And sure, there is a functionality to it that's pretty, I mean, pretty flawless, looks seamless and stuff. So I'd say the functionality is the biggest thing, but everything else kind of fell short for me. And
Okay.
that was a lot of the reviews. And it's like, well, then that's not a good game, you know?
Mhm.
Um, I'm sorry. That's just how it is. You know, I started playing Grounded, and I know everybody likes Grounded, you know, but it's a typical survival game, and I still have no idea why these kids are here. I have no idea why we're shrunk kids doing this. I don't. I have no like that story is so confusing already to the point where the story doesn't mean anything. You're just running around fighting giant bugs, you know. So I that's just the main
Actually,
thing.
some of the lore of it is pretty interesting once you, because they just released the full release and it does explain what the hell's going on, and it's actually pretty interesting.
And that's fair, but then I treat it kind of like the Dark Souls or the Soulsborne. I love the games, guys, but I don't want to pick up every piece of information to learn about the story, you know? I
Yeah.
wish there would have been at least some lead in as to, hey, we're here for this. Demon Souls even did that to some degree, and Dark Souls 2 by extent, but no other Soulsborne, which you just kind of, I'm here and I'm a part of it now, you know? It's like,
Yeah, I
who's
mean,
that person? Fight him. It's like, oh God. Like,
when when I was playing Elden Ring earlier this year, I had to watch several videos to understand
yeah, Video
certain
Vasi
aspects
is
of the lore.
literally who you have to watch for this stuff. And even then, he gets things wrong because we're just kind of left up to interpretation and random items. There's
Mhm,
still a lot in this lore that you have to assume, you know.
mhm.
And I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I just like
No, no,
I'm
no, yeah,
very passionate. I've been working on that, and so this might just be a small little toss in to something we may discuss later. It's like, no, I really believe there is a 4-point system to this to make a table, and you at least need two standing legs, one on opposite corners, to make it at least viable to some degree. You know. Oh,
So, okay. Well, with that being said, let's move on to the next. So, let's talk
yeah.
about PlayStation. Let's talk about PlayStation. So, Jeremiah, what do you think PlayStation needs to do to have a good year in 2023?
Listen to their consumers. They have the games, and we said they have the games. They have really good following. So now it's time to give back to consumers. They started the PlayStation Extra, but made it so exuberantly priced, you know, for no reason, with no day one exclusives. Like you're and my thing is that's going to hurt you in the long run. I mean, it already is. People are making fun of it, you know. We've had discussions, in fact, where it's like, give it a chance. Like, yeah, but on release, it's not looking too promising. But it
Mhm,
has the potential. We talked about this. It has the potential to be even better than Game Pass. I don't care. I'm saying it now. Like they've got the games, and they're bringing some pretty heavy
mhm,
hitters into it.
Mhm.
But what they need to do is stop being arrogant, which is what Sony is, stop being elitist about it, actually humble themselves, give the respect where it's due. Game Pass is pretty good. Actually take the notes and run with them and
Mhm.
stop trying to make their own thing so they can claim it's not the same. That model's working. So
mhm,
swallow your pride and do it. I guarantee you, if they do that if they do that one thing, they will outshine Game
mhm.
Pass and Xbox. I don't think there's anything Phil Spencer has in the barrel right now that could fight them if they were to actually humble themselves and care about their consumer base. So if they do that, I think they win.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have to kind of completely agree with Jeremiah on that one. And no, if they did humble themselves and if they got that chip off their shoulder and actually wanted to help gamers, they would wipe the floor with Microsoft then.
Oh yeah, this wouldn't even be a competition. We wouldn't even be talking top five in this but over the years they demonstrate they don't do that, and it saddens me, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, that comes from a point of bias. I'm still waiting on PS Vita 2, and I'm so pissed off still every time I think about it. I have every one of my PSPs and via PS Vita. I loved their handheld systems, and they dropped it because nope, it's not going anywhere. And then
Mhm.
Nintendo picks it up, does better with it, and they'll never go back to it. And I never understand why. because they don't want to admit it was a failure and they should have humbled themselves to that. Same thing with the Game Pass. We've talked about how the PS Now was the original Game Pass, and so they dropped it. Humble yourself, say you didn't do it correctly. It was well ahead of its time. Xbox is doing a good job. Let them have their little acquisitions. Let them do whatever feeble things they can, and just be like, hey, that's a great idea. And since it's an open, free market, and you don't have some type of huge corner on that stuff, you can't. PlayStation Extra, at the same price and kick ass. And that's my thought, because they are the ones who control better games right now. We'll see what happens in the future, but right now and going forward, we prospect really good things from them. And they also control the pricing of the gaming generation. While they weren't the first ones to start bumping up prices, they are the ones who adopted the model first of, hey, we should do the $10 up games. They were the first ones to speak on it too, of, hey, yeah, things are going to be this price, because PlayStation sets the precedence. And like we've discussed with the Game Pass, because they brought out that $30 subscription. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, because everybody wanted a Game Pass light thing from PlayStation. Like, they got the fever. It is what it is. But with them bringing out $30, what did that do? That opened the door for Microsoft to easily, and still in good light and graces, raise the prices of their Game Pass, all because of what Sony did. I don't know if that was necessarily a smart move or not, but my thing is, since you are adopting this, I think those two things, humbling yourself and putting some things on there that are same, would be good.
So technically, if you're paying for PlayStation Premium, it's the same cost as
Fair.
And that is the highest tier. Now, it's the same cost if you pay for annual all up front. So like I pay $120 a month, or not a month, a year. I pay $120 a year for the PlayStation Premium service. So that's $10 a month. So that's I guess that's about the same time. That's about the same price as the PlayStation. What is it? That's Xbox Game Pass for both PC and console, right? $10 a month.
If you were going to do that, it would be, because I think Game Pass is 14 or 15. Okay. So it's 15, and it's and then for the PC it's either 10 or 15. And so but what you're telling me is their PlayStation Premium is 15, and then it's 15 for the the breakdown
I think it's 15 a month or $120 a year.
Okay.
Now, and that also includes online play.
Well, see, one thing that Xbox did.
Xbox, I thought doesn't Xbox, you have to pay for gold separately?
Not anymore.
No.
What they did was they wrapped everything together, and they took away you can now play online without Game Pass and Xbox Gold. Like, you actually can just play online. So they went the route that PlayStation had been before the PS4, where you didn't have to pay for a subscription to do that, which a lot of people forget. That does frustrate me. It's like, guys, do not forget, PlayStation to me was more appealing because I didn't have to pay effing $10 a month to play with my friends. I would like to note that. But right now, you only have to pay, like, everything's lumped into Game Pass, and that includes Gold. So you're still getting 3 free games from Gold when you have Game Pass. They're considering it Gold still. But it's right now, their subscription is better in terms of what it's bringing, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that PlayStation isn't setting up. You sent me that awesome TikTok video where they're like putting things out, like bringing out a bunch of and I was like, yeah, no, actually a lot of this is going to be fantastic, and it is appealing because I don't own God of War. So if I go on right now, I can go play God of War, the first one, and actually play through it. That's a smart ad, that's a great, especially, just my thing is, that's my opinion though on what they would need to do. They would take a piece of humble pie, but if they did that, there's not even a competition. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big Starfield gets, because if PlayStation were to actually get serious, roll up their sleeves and say, fine, then we'll do it like you. We'll do this, Xbox is still trying to rise to the occasion, and Sony's been there for a reason,
So here's what I think. So for 2023, PlayStation has a solid lineup, just as solid as Xbox's lineup. So PlayStation has Forspoken to kick off the year, and then Final Fantasy 16 for the spring, and then Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 for the fall/winter. So now those aren't first party titles by any means. They're third party timed exclusives, but nevertheless they are PlayStation next year. And then on top of that, there is going to be some PlayStation Studio games coming out. I know that we're supposed to be getting Spider-Man 2 next year, and I think we're getting a Last of Us multiplayer of some kind.
Really? That'll be dope.
It's going to be one of those live service situations. So we'll see how that goes. And so when it comes and also to kind of round out the whole Square Enix situation. Now this is multi-platform on Nintendo and PlayStation 5 is Octopath Traveler 2. So PlayStation has a great selection of Square Enix games coming to, and I have a point that I'm trying to make. They have a bunch of games, really, really high potential games coming to their console. On top of that, they have some. I think there's even some unannounced first party titles, and of course there's the highly anticipated Spider-Man 2. They need to keep the quality coming. Because that's one of their biggest selling points right now is quality over quantity. So these Square Enix games, I think they're almost certain to be a quality game. Now, I know that Final Fantasy can be hit or miss sometimes, but they all generally still do really well financially and are still usually up there critically. Maybe not always in the 90s, but I know that they definitely usually will get into the high 80s. So I suspect Final Fantasy 16 will be high 80s, maybe low 90s. But they need to Sony and PlayStation, they need to maintain quality. Okay. Their games need to be good throughout the entire year, whether it be third or first party. So Forspoken, I think Forspoken is going to be a hit or miss. I think it's going to be either really good or really bad. I definitely think that it looks cool. It's my kind of game. I love playing those kinds of games where you have a whole bunch of different kind of powers and you get super overpowered. And it's an isekai, so I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, and then furthermore, they need to continuously they need to keep adding games to the plus and premium services. They need to keep adding really good games. They just did a really solid drop. They dropped all of the Ratchet and Clanks for the 20th anniversary. They dropped all the Ratchet and Clanks. On top of that, they dropped a few other things. But adding all the Ratchet and Clanks is really dope. That means that I can now go in there and play, Ratchet and Clank Going Commando, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. All of those were PlayStation 2 games, remastered for PlayStation 3. So that'll be really cool to be able to do that. I think that another thing that Sony really needs to think about and consider is adding PlayStation 1 and 2 games to the premium and extra services, simply because I'm currently in the process. I mean, here's the thing. I'm in the process of doing kind of a Resident Evil replay, and I would have really liked to have played, although the tank controls and the weird like switching camera situation, the stationary camera situation in the early Resident Evil games, I would have really liked to have like replayed like the original Resident Evil 2 and original Resident Evil 3. Although I played Resident Evil 0 and 1 and I couldn't really get past the first 20 minutes because the controls just drove me insane. But I would like to be able to have the option of going back and playing those old Resident Evil games. And I mean, they have other things on there. They have Code Veronica on there, and I think they need to think about doing PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games for that service. And they just need to keep releasing good games on the service to make it a legitimate competitor to Xbox Game Pass. And yeah, and then like I you know, when it here's the thing. I think, I don't know. As far as listening to fans goes, I think that they definitely have dropped the ball this year. But at the end of the day, I feel like they can sort of get off the hook simply because they put out good games, and the games are always usually quality. And at the end of the day, like, I feel like I can get over certain things because I'm distracted by the fact that I have fun games to play. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and you're not affected by this. So it's not the last year; it's been the last decade. But definitely you aren't affected like the common gamer,
Yeah.
you're not affected by a lot of the issues that they've brought and they've just ignored. That's why I'm so upset with Phil Spencer and the Halo instance. Like, you need to be putting out a statement, because right now you're giving off Jim Ryan and Sony vibes, but you don't care. You don't care because, like you said, you're just kind of like, we put out money, we put out games, we got your money, we make money to make money, and they just let it go. And so it is frustrating but my thing is, at this point this year, it's kind of like, well, it's just the same thing we get. The reason why there's a bigger outrage for Microsoft is there's usually a statement, there's usually at least some type of recompense. And in Sony's point, it's just kind of like, well, here we go again. They don't care. We're going to say it, but they don't care. That being said, I do want to give one more point that I meant to bring up, is that, like, actually, I've got the strategy. To beat Xbox, for PlayStation. They just have to do it. They just have to implement it. So it focuses on two things. One, stop your buyout blocking. While I do agree with it, while I do agree with your timed exclusives, because you have that right, you are a business, and let's be fair, they focus more on extra content given to the games as they're releasing for their console more than Xbox does. So they have the right to do that. Right now, as it's been shown, whenever more time exclusives come out, the general consensus is y'all are being a bunch of jerks because y'all already are number one. So don't focus that anymore, because my thing is, y'all are already going to do good, and you're making yourself look like villains. So PR-wise, drop it. I'm not saying that you should stop it because it's bad. I'm saying that because it's bad for your image, But number two, and the bigger one, release all the content from Destiny, and Destiny 2 is an exclusive PlayStation thing. Like, you have Bungie, and one of the biggest arguments for Destiny 2, one of the reasons why there was a huge rift back, I think last year, I was even going to jump into it, was that they vaulted a lot of the story. A lot of the content is vaulted. You can't play it. You can't interact with it. All you can do is really look it up, but you can't go play it, right? It's vaulted as a way to respect, because there was a huge issue with that from people who've been playing Destiny and Destiny 2 from the very beginning to people who are just jumping into it now. And they finally decided to vault key points of the story. You can't even go back and play them, which caused a rift and a lot of people to get away from Destiny 2 when it was starting to pick up traction again. If they were to unvault that specifically as an exclusive to PlayStation, watch the masses. You win. You win. I'm serious. Like I know that's stupid, and I know it's kind of like, now this is my thing. It's like, they have all the cards, Brent. I keep saying, like, I respect where Sony is right now. They have all the cards. They just got to do it, Like, talk to Bungie, make them release it for PlayStation. I would laugh so hysterically. It'd be a great year for me. I'd hear the tears of y'all, and so you have to understand, although I play Xbox and I put us on those odds, I'm more of a troll. And my thing is, when Xbox fans or Sony fans want something so hard, I would love for it to be taken away. And especially with Xbox right now, with everything I keep seeing, I can't wait. Like, I'm hoping the Activision Blizzard deal falls through, just so I can be there, just so I can listen to the crying, It's, and I want that. So
you want to know what kind of, one thing that I've sort of been thinking about is, like, why does Xbox want Activision Blizzard so bad? Like, why?
I mean, yeah. So
Like,
my thing is
like
by admitting you need it, admits that we don't have anything on the console itself. That we put so much
yeah, like
focus on our UI, on our Game Pass and stuff, and we don't have anything.
like
And yeah,
I mean, like you said,
we
like
don't.
well, like you said earlier, buying ZeniMax for Xbox, like that would be something that as a gamer, as an Xbox gamer specifically, I would be stoked about. Like, holy crap.
Mhm.
No, we're getting ZeniMax, we're getting Bethesda, we're getting Arcane, we're getting whatever that studio is that did Ghostwire and the Evil Within
Yeah,
series.
yeah,
What is that? That's shit, I forgot. Anyways, they're getting like a lot of really good studios that have the potential to put out really great games. That is something that makes sense to be excited about. But Activision
Tango
Blizzard,
GameWorks.
Tango, yeah. But
Yeah.
Activision Blizzard, like
It's
that's
completely outside the realm, and the only reasoning when it first happened, the only reasoning I thought was because I thought there were talks and relations of Sony and Tencent, because Tencent, of course, is the people behind like Riot Games and stuff like that,
mhm.
like big Eastern games and stuff like that. And so I thought that, but then as I see, apparently Tencent's their own competitor, like entirely, and so I don't see the relevance of it. Like, even if they buy out Activision Blizzard, what do you think? World of Warcraft is coming to console? Because it's not. Like, it
Mm.
probably is not. You know,
Well,
it's not.
well,
And that's a
hang
PC
on,
thing.
hang on. So here's the thing. Honestly, World of Warcraft coming to Xbox. So Xbox has been wanting to get Final Fantasy 14 on their console for years, but it's not happening. It's
No,
not
it's not
happening,
happening.
and I don't think it ever will happen. Uh,
No.
but imagine getting what is considered to be the number one MMO and has been the number one MMO for what, almost 20 years now. Um, Imagine getting that and putting that on Xbox as a competitor to Sony to PlayStation's Final Fantasy 14. So because
I mean, yeah.
Final Fantasy 14 can be played on PlayStation and PC, and imagine if World of Warcraft could be played on Xbox and PC with like
So
cross compatibility.
here's my issue with it. So by comparison, ESO can be played on both, right? Like you can do a massive MMO type game
Sure.
on either or.
Yeah, but does anybody
ESO
play
has
ESO? Does like
I play
really
ESO.
you play ESO?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I mean, but like, but when you think about
I'm just kidding, Brent. I told you. No, no, I
uh,
tried it out last year with some friends. It was very fun. But I want to point out something, an issue with MMOs. When I was playing that game, I had a lot of fun, but at one point, I got to a point where I couldn't. It's not react fast enough. It's basically the controller is detrimental. I would actually need a
yeah,
mouse and
ugh.
keyboard to actually like be able to do hotkeys and stuff like that, like to do stuff like correctly. And so that's my issue. It's like you're gonna really open up to a sport of
Well,
gamers that have to use mouse and keyboard. And
here's the thing. Like, there's plenty. I know plenty. I've heard. Well, maybe not no, but I've heard of plenty of people who play Final Fantasy 14 on their consoles, and they do just fine.
sets out.
So I mean, I've played Final Fantasy 14 on console before. It's like it works. I mean, it's hard to chat with people, but it works, and you get used to it after a while. Um, do I prefer mouse and keyboard when I play it? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But like, if so, if say so, now don't get me wrong, most gamers these days have PCs, but say that you don't. Say that you don't have a PC, okay?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, World of Warcraft is available, maybe even through Xbox Game Pass on your Xbox.
It's hard to conceive because, like you said, being a gamer who doesn't have, because I have a PC that can at least run that, you know.
I mean,
Um,
I've only had a PC for the last 2 years.
Fair. If
I've
they
only
would have
had a
brought World of Warcraft to Xbox 2 years ago, do you think you would have played it? Like
No,
before you
because
had your PS.
my time with World of Warcraft has come and gone. But I'm thinking about like for like maybe that 15 or 16-year-old who only has an Xbox and would like to try World of Warcraft. All of a sudden, it's available on his Xbox through Xbox Game Pass.
That would be, like that's an oversight on my point. Like, I just think it's a dead game, but it really isn't. Like every time, even though they're a horrible company, and the last 3 years have really shined the light on some pretty
Mhm.
bad practices, everyone's still stoked about the next expansion of World of Warcraft. And I'm just like, okay, well, you can't kill a company by buying its product.
So getting World of Warcraft, Microsoft getting World of Warcraft onto X, like that would be a legitimate competitor to
I have to agree with that then, but, because I forget about Final Fantasy 14, but my experience with it is pretty much like I'm going to do it on PC.
Mm,
When it comes to MMOs, I usually stay away from them on console, and ESO would be a reasoning as to why. Because at one point we're fighting all these hard things, but it's just hard to keep up with because of just
sure.
button layout and button limited availability. It's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
so, but yeah.
Casey, we've been kind of talking for like forever. What are your thoughts on PlayStation?
I can't really say much since I'm not really on PlayStation anymore. I do remember how I very much did enjoy PlayStation, um, and they just kind of need to include the gamers better. That's pretty much my
Mhm.
only thing. Is like
Well,
they
I
need more inclusion.
I could argue that they're doing just fine by the gamer. I think that the thing that I think a lot of people, and I've talked to Jeremiah about this. I think that
Mhm.
Mhm.
some of the acquisitions that are occurring are actually dangerous for gamers, and
Yep.
I think that it
Yeah,
is.
that's true.
I think so. I don't. I know. I've never. So look at it from this perspective, Casey. So
Mhm.
let's think about what Xbox is doing supposedly for the gamers. They bought up ZeniMax, which is a publisher that owns tons of studios.
Mhm.
They're about to acquire Activision Blizzard King, a publisher that owns a ton. Hey, what's going on, Rando Rookie? Thank you for being here. We're so um they're about to own another major publisher, okay, that
Mhm.
owns a bunch of studios. So here's the issue, right? Sony has never purchased a publisher. Sony just buys up smaller studios. I
Mhm.
think I think Sony in of themselves are like a publisher. Um I don't know. So I don't know how that works. I mean, I guess Square Enix would be the publisher of any Square Enix game. Anyways, but Sony has never outright purchased any publisher. They've only purchased studios. Now, what Activision Blizzard? So Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard all of a sudden sets a precedent that people with money can buy up all of these things and monopolize the market. Okay,
Mhm.
so me as a gamer, say that say that so say this is just an example, right? So say that Microsoft, which is literally an endless money pit, okay, they come in, they purchase active they've already set a precedent with buying ZeniMax, albeit it was a cheaper one. What was it, like 8 billion? I don't know how much
7
was
point something billion.
yeah. Now all of a sudden they're purchasing Activision Blizzard for 68.7 billion. Okay. Now who's to now what if they that getting approval?
7.5.
Okay.
7.5. I want to know like 7.5.
So getting the approval in acquiring Activision Blizzard, um th- now what's going to stop them from continuing this? What's going to stop them from possibly, say, buying Sega? What's to stop them from buying Square Enix? these are just examples. These are kind of wild examples, but they are examples. So all of a sudden that puts me, as someone who mostly plays on PlayStation, in a situation to where now I am forced to buy an Xbox. And as a gamer and as a consumer, I would feel a little resentful.
So here's my issue with that though. It's like when it comes to that, to the resentment there, it's like I can't really be that way. So they've got people that create only PlayStation games. As an Xbox player, I can't play Ragnarok on my Xbox. I'm forced to buy a PlayStation to play it. And even more than that, so the argument whenever I say that is going to come down to, well, that was the publisher's decision, not ours, right? But so I take it back to the acquisitions. It's not just on Xbox to buy them. It's not like this is a hostile takeover. Someone had to agree to it at ZeniMax. Someone has to agree to it, and not just someone. A board of someone's has to agree to it, both at ZeniMax and at Activision Blizzard King. So I guess my thing is resentment. I can't necessarily get behind. It's like, I mean, if they do that and they keep it there, that was their choice. Just like the publishers on PlayStation chose to do that, because PlayStation, for the publishers that back them, or the publishers that keep exclusivity. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I guess I should have reiterated that all. Yeah. So I should have made mention that, you know, Square Enix and Sega are companies that have traditionally made games for both Sony and for Xbox. Now with some timed exclusives going to either or. So say that all of a sudden Activision, let's say that all of a sudden Microsoft buys Sega. All of a sudden, me, as someone who's traditionally played the Persona games on PlayStation, I am now that, and they've been traditionally PlayStation games for the past 25 years. I now have to buy an Xbox.
Yes, and that.
So I'm talking about. So that's what I should have mentioned, is like the, you know, and so yeah, I could. So and here's the thing too, and like that is a concern of PlayStation gamers with the Activision Blizzard deal. All of a sudden there is questionable, things are questionable as to where Call of Duty is going to be at in the next 10 years. Okay.
Rightfully so too. That's a rightful, that like, although they're saying they're going to was it they use another term, but like they're going to honor the contracts already set forth. The fact that they have the power to just say, but after that, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Like what happens there? Yeah, and so that's the concern. And while yes, it's a little bit of FUD coming from the opposition. I say opposition from PlayStation, because it's like, but y'all have the power and ability to do that. It's like, well, they do, you know, and that is a concern. And they are making it a point not to state, no, you know what, we're always going to keep it that way. They're keeping the option available to take it away, you know, but that is similar to what they are doing right now with like increasing their stocks in certain things, doing the buyout blocking and the time exclusives. It's all a part of the business, you know. That concern for Activision Blizzard on one half of the Modern Warfare franchise, you know, I say Call of Duty franchise is a valid concern, though, you know.
Well, so basically, all I can say is that if Xbox fans are okay with Microsoft buying their way into first place, then they also need to be okay with Sony paying for paying for timed exclusives on their consoles.
Well, I mean, so at this point, it comes to the chicken and the egg, you know, in my opinion. So who did it first? And technically, Sony did it first. They've done it before, and they continue to do it.
What are you talking about? So, Xbox was doing timed exclusive nonsense 10 years ago on the 360.
Same with the PlayStation, though. Whenever Monster Hunter World came out, and not just timed exclusive, but keeping exclusivity, like, okay, sure, it's on both, but if you got it on PlayStation, you got all these other benefits, you know.
Xbox was doing that with Call of Duty back in the day. Xbox was doing that with Call of Duty, like the original Modern Warfare games.
Well, and that's why I say it comes down to chicken and the egg, because I believe that Sony was doing it first, and you say that they're doing it as well. It's like, so it just depends on who started that as to who should be the one to have to accept the other side. Wouldn't you agree? Like if you're saying that Xbox has to be okay with one side or the other because they are voicing it, that, hey, well, it's not fair what they're doing, so now they have to accept what they're doing is right. But like, it depends on who did it first. Wouldn't you agree? It's like, it's if it was Xbox who did this buyout and is keeping something from somebody.
But my whole thing, the point that I'm trying to make though is that like Microsoft has money to do whatever the hell they want, and they're flexing right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes.
So, and I don't know, like in my opinion, stop flexing and show us what you can do with that muscle.
Yes. Okay. And I agree with that. That was the beginning of my thing. Like, stop your stuff and just make something good now.
And to me as a gamer, I would be frustrated if they continue to buy things that traditionally are either on PlayStation or on both consoles and like they continue to flex and they continue to flex and they continue to flex without like producing or doing something of their own. Then me as a gamer, I would be really frustrated that all of a sudden, oh, here's this company that just has a bunch of money. They bought themselves into first place. They bought up all these games that I love playing on a specific console. And now I am forced to get their product because they've bought up everything. I would be pissed. I would be pissed as a consumer that they did that.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. What I'm saying is, whenever you made the statement of like they have to be okay, it's like that really depends on who started that game first, But my thing is, I think it's too far down the line for us to say one or the other. I think. Go ahead.
Maybe a better argument would be is like if you're okay, if you're like, it's like so. Maybe it's like how do I phrase it? I had the right terminology in my head. I had it like it's like if okay, here's the best way to put it. If one company is going to flex in one direction, then you need to, if you're okay with one company flexing one way, then you need to be okay with the other company flexing another. Regardless of who's doing it and who did it first. I think that's the best way to put it. Right now, Xbox is flexing their billions of dollars and Sony is flexing their capability of getting really great timed exclusives.
Yeah. And so, like I said, it just comes down to who was starting that first, But I do agree with you. If we look at it one way, on one hand, Sony fans should just shut up about it and just let it happen then. If we're going off that, like, if that's what they choose to do with Call of Duty, there's not really much you can say about it. They have that right as the owners, But at the same time, Xbox, I don't care what they're doing with buyout blocking. I don't care what they're doing with timed exclusives. I feel like that's wasted on both sides. It would be wasted. I think it's a waste of money if they don't allow PlayStation to buy into Call of Duty. That's stupid. And I believe it's very stupid. I believe it's very stupid if they do that. I believe it's kind of stupid if Sony continues to do this timed exclusive, focusing on the buyout blocking and not focusing on, getting their stuff up to par on their UI and their game services, And so honestly, I would say the more atrocious one is Xbox. If they're stupid enough not to keep that on PlayStation for the money alone, then that's pride and that's an idiot. And I'll call that on Phil Spencer and anyone up there.
Well, but like Xbox does need. I do think that Xbox does need to be careful with what they choose to do next. They need it because they do have the potential of upsetting. I mean, they're whether they want to admit it or not, there is great concern in the PlayStation community, and I think that people seem to forget that maybe perhaps that Jim Ryan might be looking out for his. Okay, just hear me out. He might be looking out for his his gaming community that he represents, because in 10 years time, those gamers may not have a game that they've been used to playing. So like there is concern in the PlayStation community as to where Call of Duty is going to be at. And if crap, I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse with what I'm saying here, but like
No.
it's if all of a sudden I heard that Xbox was planning on negotiating some kind of deal with Sega, and all of a sudden I was concerned about the future of where the Persona franchise would be, I would be frustrated.
Oh yeah. Also, so and you brought up like they need to be wary about what they're doing, especially what was it? Bobby Kotick threw out there this last week that they don't expect anything to change from the acquisition if Microsoft buys up Activision Blizzard, that they're still going to run things normally. They really shouldn't. I think we both are in agreement that they need to go clean that house, And so my thing is, it is in their court to do what they're going to do next. Like I'm really interested to hear what your plans are on fixing that issue. I'm really interested to hear on what games y'all are gonna. Don't be Miami when they bought up D Wade, when they brought up Chris Bosh, when they brought up LeBron James all in 1 year and still lost the first championship season. You just made money buys. You made NBA 2K money buys with ZeniMax and with Activision Blizzard. If I don't see a banger within 2 years,
so
and that started like 6 months ago. So if I don't see a banger by the end of next year,
I mean, this is kind of like what was that team that bought Tom Brady? Is like you're about to buy a second Tom Brady. Is like where's your Super Bowl?
Well, see, for me, like I said, everyone always wondered in the sports community, like when it comes to basketball, football, soccer, anything like that, what if you did buy up all the good players and put them on a team? And that's pretty much what Miami did back in the day, when they pulled LeBron from the Cavaliers, when they pulled D Wade and Bosh and all them. And my thing is they bought them up and everybody was like, that is a team that would be a literal, like if I was a gamer, that'd be a move, so what are we going to do with it? And they still didn't win the championship the first year. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. You've got some pretty hard hitting people. Whatever. But
yeah.
And so I honestly, and I will say this, I kind of expect that from Xbox next year. No offense to Starfield, but they still haven't released anything worth any credit towards how it's going, what we can see, we can expect.
And here's the unfortunate circumstances regarding Starfield. And this isn't just me like being like a Sony fan bashing on Starfield. This is me like looking at a game that is being released 2 years into the new gen, and it looks like old gen to me. It looks like old gen. It doesn't I mean, it I don't know. I mean, I could be completely blown away, in 6 months or whenever it is released. Who knows? There is no
it's
release
tough.
date.
This is where it has to be fair, though, right? I mean, God of War Ragnarok came out and said that all the capabilities of the PS5 wouldn't be used in the enhancement of how the game looks and plays. And that pissed off a lot of people, mostly people outside of the Sony community. And we've talked about that. But my thing is, then I hold to the same standard for that. And the difference between the two is, although I expect that God of War Ragnarok should look good, and it does. But my thing is, I definitely expect a space exploration game made by a company that's been top for 20 years to look fantastic. I'm expecting it. I think that's fair.
The difference is that Sony Santa Monica made some changes in the development to make it accessible for PlayStation, for PlayStation 4, but Starfield is exclusive
to Xbox Series. Yes.
To the new gen, Xbox Series and PC. So if it's exclusive to this gen, it better freaking look good for this gen. And it better anyways. So, and to me right now, I don't know.
No, I gave a pass to Halo Infinite on its release because it looked like it was going to be fun, and I'm okay with it, right? But now, 2-3 years later, when we're talking about the exclusives for this current gen, I do expect big things, and I'm telling you know that I'm expecting that to be greatness. If it's not, then I'm going to weigh on it just as hard. So because I expect it to be good. I've expected more from Bethesda for many years, but definitely right now, like.
Okay, so we've been going on for a while, Casey,
Sorry.
you've been listening very very patiently and diligently. So what are your thoughts on some of the things that we've discussed tonight?
Well, one, I don't like politics. I don't like politics, and I don't like business. For the most part, all I can really state is that Xbox and Sony, they have their own focuses, and that's where most of their community lies. And it's just like life. If something is happening around something that you have no focus on, you're going to be even harsher on it, and you're not going to actually give it the time of day. And it's only being made worse by Sony's and Microsoft's decisions right now, because right now we have no clue what's going to happen. And as a community, we've already been screwed over. So we're just we're tired of it at this point.
Sure.
There's like no other way to state it.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. That's why we weigh on we and it's unfair just to say it for Sony, say they need to care about their consumers. I think that Xbox needs to as well. The fact is they've been really good to play the flashing lights of their awesome game services provided, but still have yet to put a game worth noting, and that frustrates me, and having that realization that they're focusing more on their money pit and less on something that would be entertaining to me is frustrating, and so both of them have something to improve. Both of them are still making good moves, though. I still think they're both making great moves, and I'm looking forward to next year. So
it's gonna be a good year. So just to kind of wrap it up, so this coming week I'm doing, and you two are always welcome. On Tuesday, a time has yet to be decided. I think I need to touch base with another friend of mine. But Monday, the Game Awards nominations are going to be released, and so Tuesday I'm going to be doing a special podcast with another friend of mine who's played so many games this year, and he and I are gonna discuss the Game of the Year nominations. So Tuesday night we're gonna be doing a special podcast centered around the Game Awards. You two are welcome to be there. I'll keep you guys posted on what's going to go down for that. I don't know if that will be a replacement from our Thursday podcast, but it's possible. So so once I have a definitive time on that, I will let you know. And so that'll be fun. We're going to just talk about the nominations and what we think is going to be and what we think might win in each respective category. So keep an eye out for that. Anyways, to wrap it up, Jeremiah, where can we find you?
Dude, let's chat on all social media platforms right now except for Facebook. Dude, let's chat on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch and YouTube. Although we don't do much on Twitch, we do everything on YouTube. We still have that channel. We had that argument. So come check us out. Give us a like and a follow.
And Casey, what about us?
You can find us right here on Work in Progress for our channels. We're usually doing our podcast live every Thursday. We also do My Hero Academia. And you can catch a lot of Brent's stuff because he does a lot of reviews and he's been getting some traction on them. So you should check him out while you can.
Yeah, check out that Cyberpunk re-review, baby. That is gold. Go see it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for this extra long podcast. And we will see you on the next one Tuesday. So take it easy.